Hey everybody, this is Randy from bokehimage.com and dread242.com. I received an email the other day, someone asking for more information about the Holga 120S that I disassembled. This camera was given to me by a Flickr contact who is no longer using it. And after I shot my first roll of film, the aperture selector switch broke. The switch on the outside still works, but the little swing arm inside that moves the aperture between the two settings, the little stem broke off, so the selector switch no longer functions. But in my quest to learn more about light leaks and how they happened, I figured that this camera would be the perfect candidate for disassemble and learning about light leaks. First off, this camera, when it's just simply handled, it tweaks in certain ways that allow light to enter into the film chamber here. I noticed that by holding the camera body and the camera top, and if you just tweak it or pull it apart in opposing directions, the gap that separates the top half from the body tends to increase, and light enters into the top half and into the film chamber from there, as well as on the back when you've got your film cover or the cover on and you pull it apart. You'll notice the gap increases, thus allowing light to get in. But the majority of the light leaks, in addition to coming in around the perimeter of the camera, the majority of the light leaks enter in through the two holes that are inside the film chamber. There's one on either side, or I should say the underside of the top. There are two holes down here, and contrary to popular belief, those holes were not put there to create light leaks. These cameras, these Holgas, the body on the Holga from one model to the other seems to be the same. It's only the top half that changes. You have Holgas with a flash shoe, you have Holgas with an internal flash and a selector knob on top to change the color of the flash. But that flash is powered by two batteries which sit inside the film chamber, one on either side. The wiring harness from the battery are fed into the top half of the camera through those two holes that exist there, and that's how the light gets into the film chamber. But how does light get into the top? In addition to tweaking your camera and allowing light to come in through the top, light also comes in through the viewfinder, and I wanted to see that. So I took this screw out right here. There's a little tiny Phillips screw, but there are two more screws underneath the film advance knob. So if you simply take a screwdriver, put a piece of tape on there so you don't mar the plastic too much. If you stick the screwdriver right in between the film advance knob and the body, and you just kind of wiggle it back and forth gently and maybe underneath, this film advance knob will pop right off. It's simply held on by the smallest amount of glue. You can simply glue it right back on. But it exposes two more Phillips screws. So when you take those screws out, the top half simply lifts right off. So you can see the entire interior of the top half of the camera. Now, these two yellow wires right here connect to the back of the shutter, and that's what trips the hot shoe if you have a flash on, if you have a model with a flash. If you don't have the model with built-in flash or hot shoe, you shouldn't see any wires. But looking at this viewfinder, you can see where light comes in through the back when you're looking through the little hole on the back. Light will come in through the back, through the front, hop right over this wall, and go right down those two holes into your film chamber, fogging your film. I also found that this little nipple on the inside, right here, this little nipple drops down into the roll of film, and when you put your film on the inside of the camera and drag your lead across, that sits down inside your film. Well, I was using a flashlight in the dark trying to find light leaks, and I noticed that a small amount of light comes right through that nipple, aiming right down inside your film. Now the film is contained in a sealed canister, but I thought it was just odd that light would be coming through that little tiny nipple there. So what I ended up doing was I took a toothpick and I put glue on the tip of the toothpick, and I stuck the toothpick in a hole, let it dry overnight. Then I took a pair of wire cutters and cut it off. and then I painted it black to seal that up. Also, let's see here. If you look at the front, you have the Holga logo, and you have, for I guess design, you have this little bump out right here. Can you see that? It's just it's how it's designed. But this little section where the top of the top half of the camera meets the lens housing, when you tweak it, light comes in, and I'm going to pull that back apart, and jumps right over this opening right here. And that's a huge gap that allows light to come once again back into the top and right down those two holes and right inside your film chamber, fogging your film. So it is imperative that those two holes get sealed. You can use electrical tape. You can use dark colored duct tape. I chose to use foam. I have this black foam right here that you can get at any craft store. I simply cut off two little squares, peeled off the adhesive back, and stuck them in place on top of those holes. Also, the inside of this film chamber is made of plastic, and it's very reflective. So when your shutter opens, every time that shutter opens, light enters in, exposes the film, but it also bounces around inside this film chamber, potentially fogging your film. I should say at least the film that has yet to pass over the section where it's going to be exposed, and as well as the film that's already been exposed and it's winding up over here. So you have these two little slots, one on either side, which hold your film mask in place if you happen to be using a film mask. So you have various film masks that pop in. If you're not using that film mask, that light comes in and fogs your film on either side. So due to the extreme reflectiveness, I decided to spray it with black enamel spray paint, which kind of helped reduce the reflection of the light when it bounces around inside the chamber. So I found that to be extremely helpful. I simply covered up what I didn't want sprayed. I took a little piece of cardboard on a toothpick and made a little cover that kind of drops down in there to cover up the hole where the shutter is, and did my spray, pulled that out and let it dry overnight, and I think that pretty much reduced the reflective tendencies of this chamber by a great deal. Also, there's always talk about the shutter being a source of light leaks. And I took this high-intensity LED flashlight, and I was shining it inside or in and around the shutter, trying to force light to come through the other side, and I saw no evidence of light coming through. So I didn't worry about that as much as others have in the past. So that's pretty much what I did to reduce the light leaks. I wanted to use this foam, little strips of it, and tuck it down inside the back cover. There's a little groove or a little channel that runs around the perimeter, and I did get some down in there. I put the cover back on. It did fit, but after a few days, the sticky side of this foam started to reverse itself and peel away, and it became a big mess. So I ended up stripping that out of there and not doing that. So I guess it's going to be gaffer's tape to go around the perimeter. But just recently, I bought a 35 millimeter Holga kit, which has the same size cover, but the back film counter window is covered up. It's got plastic on there. So I may just use this one instead. And it comes with stickers that allow you to do your count as far as how many clicks you need when advancing film. When you're shooting 35 millimeter, I can figure it out for 120. That shouldn't be that big of an issue. Also, while I was goofing around modeling this thing, I decided to do a small hack for 35 millimeter film. I took the reel out of a roll of film, a spent roll of film, and I cut it. I used a hacksaw. Actually, sorry, I didn't cut that. I used a take-up reel for 120 and a hacksaw. And I took the hacksaw and I cut back and forth on either end until I had cut off the center section of this 120 reel, and I simply glued it to either end of the reel that comes on the inside of a normal 35 millimeter film canister, giving me I don't want to say a a professional way of rolling up this film on the other side, but it certainly helped guide my film and keep the film straight when it's inside the Holga. So I thought that was a pretty novel little hack that I came up with. I used sandpaper. I would just pretty much rubbed it around on a sandpaper until I got either end to the correct length that I needed to fit down inside here snug, and then I used a little bit of cement, contact cement, to glue the three pieces together, so it worked out fine. You're probably looking at these markings I have on this masking tape on the back of this test film. I was using it to figure out exactly how many clicks it takes to get to a fresh section, unexposed section of film. I know it's about anywhere between, 34, 36 clicks, but I had always heard talk that the space between the exposed film increases the more you turn it. And I found that to be true, so looking at the gap in between exposed film gets bigger and bigger the more you advance the film, which is a potential waste of film. So I gotta figure out what the correct ratio would be in order to maximize a roll of film. I don't want to waste film. So that's pretty much all I did as far as learning about light leaks. This camera probably will never be used again, but it was a tremendous learning experience as far as figuring out where the light leaks come from in the camera. So there you go. Plug these holes, these three holes, plug up that hole right there. Spray the inside of your camera with a flat black matte paint, and that should reduce your light leaks a great deal. So there you go. I hope that helps. Good luck.